Greetings, Math 111. Welcome to section 1.1. So we are going to jump in. What you'll find in this very first chapter is a lot of vocabulary. And actually posted in Canvas, there is a list of vocabulary. I think it actually says terminology for Math 111. And I think that you'll find that helpful to maybe even print that list out as you start on chapter 1. Honestly, when I first started to teach this, I had done all calculus-based prob and stats. I had never really looked at the basic end of it, and the vocabulary was a little overwhelming to me. So I made this list way back, almost 10 years ago when I first started teaching this class, and it's been very helpful. So we'll use vocabulary all semester. We need to learn to speak the language of probability and statistics. So let's get started. So what is statistic? We need to identify variables. That may seem very simple, but honestly, sometimes that's a little trickier. We want to look at the difference between qualitative and quantitative, and you gotta slow down when you say those words. Population versus sample. Again, these are very important differences. Distinguish between parameters and statistics, the level of measurement. You may not ever thought about how to classify data and what the data is like. Descriptive versus inferential, okay? So statistics is the study of how to collect, organize, analyze, and interpret numerical information from data. I want us to make a little side comment at this point. You'll notice that there are slide numbers. Those PowerPoints are all posted on Canvas, so you can follow along. I will have them up, and I have space on my board to write, but it may be helpful if you actually follow along with your own PowerPoints. You can even print them out. There's a way to print out from PowerPoint in a note format, so you could have them printed out as you go through, if that would help you. Again, it's whatever, you know how best you learn. It might help you as you walk through this, because then you can just make notes as you go. So statistics is both science of uncertainty and the technology of getting information from that data. Individuals are the people or objects included in this study. A variable is some sort of characteristic. So we hear in the news all the time things that, how many people tested positive, how many people actually passed away, how many people were tested. What is it that we're looking for? What are we studying? The quantitative and qualitative. So quantitative, qualitative. And actually, I encourage you when we get to the exam, say the word out loud to yourself, okay? Quantitative is something that has a numerical value. I can count 5 fish in the pond, or I can count 8 toads around my pool, or I can count how many weeds are in my flower beds right now, okay? That's quantitative. Qualitative is trying to describe it. So maybe I say it's a particular type of fish, or maybe I say it's a particular type of frog or toad. In my garden, in my flower beds, are lots of different kinds of weeds. So perhaps I say this is, here's, I don't know, a dandelion, and here's quackgrass, and here's ivy that's growing where it's not supposed to. That's qualitative. It's a quality about it. It could be I say it's green, or it's yellow, or it has little purple flowers. Those are qualities. In population data, we look at every person. So I'm gonna make this chart many times during the semester. Oops, that marker goes in the trash. I can throw it at the back of the room when nobody's in there. That's awesome. So population. And a sample. So population is everyone. Right now you keep seeing information on making sure you fill out your census. The sample is just some. I counted just the people in a particular, on a particular street. That's what I did. Under population, we call those parameters. The cool thing is they both start with P, so you can remember that. For samples, we call that a statistic. Under population, we will use Greek letters to describe things. And under sample, we'll use what we normally use, which are Arabic numbers, by the way, in case you did not know that. Letters, usually, Arabic letters, okay? So we'll talk about this often, the difference between a population and a sample. If I talk to every one of you and said, okay, we're gonna have a little party here around the pond at Bethel, and I'm gonna bring ice cream, and I asked every one of you what kind of ice cream you wanted, and I made sure I bought all those kinds. Everybody would be happy. Maybe there's somebody that really looks like something more like a frozen ice. Perhaps they need a non-dairy option or a no sugar or some special option. Everybody should be happy if I do it by population and I buy everything. A sample, on the other hand, if I talked to 3 of you and bought what 3 of you liked, maybe somebody wouldn't be happy. Maybe they would be sad. Maybe they couldn't eat that kind. Maybe it would give them, a stomach ache, or their blood sugar would skyrocket, and that would not be healthy. So population versus sample, that's an important difference. So the Hawaii Department of Tropical Agriculture is conducting a study of ready-to-harvest pineapples in an experimental field. So the pineapples are the objects. They're individual. So each little pineapple, maybe each one has a little number, maybe not a name, but give them a number. And in the study, if the researchers are interested in the individual weights of pineapples in the field, then the variable is the weights. So that's a quantitative. And we need to talk about how accurate. So when we create a study, we'll spend a lot of time talking about when you create a study, what kind of information do you need to gather? Because it's really important that if you're going to weigh everybody in a certain way, that you weigh everybody in that certain way. Or you have skewed the data. You have muddied the waters a little bit, shall we say. If you've been a wrestler, you may know that they have those guys stripped down to their underwear and they weigh themselves where everybody can see. Well, all the coaches anyways, so where they can see. So that everybody is weighed exactly the same way, because they wrestle by weight, and it's very specific and it's very important. So that is their procedure. So whatever procedure you come up with, that's what you need to stick with. Do we measure to a pound? Do we measure to ounces? Do we measure in kilograms? Do we measure kilograms to the first decimal place, the second decimal place? How do we do that, okay? Just be consistent. It doesn't matter, just be consistent. So a quantitative would be a weight. What if, I'm gonna keep going, you guys can read this in more detail. What if we wanted to do it based on taste? Okay, so there is a couple people that were experts in the taste of a pineapple, and we'd have categories like poor, acceptable, and good. Okay, so we would categorize them. They get a label as to how they are. That's qualitative, because that's a quality. Maybe it's how yellow. Maybe I have samples of colors that indicate how bright yellow they are. Because only some of the pineapples in the field are included in the study, that's a sample, okay? So if we went to every pineapple, however, if I cut open every pineapple, now I can't sell them, right? So there's trade-offs of, yes, it's great to have everyone checked in on, but sometimes I can only check on some, or I damage it, or it's just too expensive, or it's too costly, or whatever. All right, so levels of measurement. And this is a topic that you may not have thought about previously. Nominal, ordinal, interval, and ratio, okay? And I always pause here and talk about the formula sheet that is posted on Canvas under that syllabus section. There is a list of formulas. You really need to print that out, okay? Print out those formulas and have those available anytime you're doing homework. This is not on there, but I always encourage you to write on there. And I use the acronym NOIR. So if I use this acronym, NOIR, so that's for nominal, ordinal, interval, and ratio. Least precise, most precise. So we'll walk through these. So we start by saying, is it qualitative or quantitative? Another way to do that is levels of measurement. So the nominal level. Now, let me point something out about our beautiful PowerPoints. You'll see these little colored boxes. If you get a physical copy of the textbook, it has these little colored boxes. Your electronic copy does not have colored boxes. They just have a line around them. But those are usually really good summaries. If you do nothing else with your textbook, read the colored boxes, okay? Remember, you have to take the initiative to learn as much as you can in this class. The textbook is wonderful. It's readable, it's helpful. The best way to prepare for a lecture and for learning is to read the textbook on your own, okay? So nominal level of measurement applies to all the data that consist of names, labels, or categories. So the instruments in a marching band: trumpets, clarinets, saxophones, euphoniums, percussion, those are nominal. Ordinal, data that can be arranged in order, but the differences don't really mean anything, okay? So graduation would have been yesterday here on campus, and those students might have had a class ranking. They might have known whether they were first in their class, second, third, or fourth. Really what's important is the difference in GPA, okay? So the difference between the first student and the fifth student might not really mean anything. It might be so small that that difference is meaningless. But the difference between the 50th and the 51st, that might be a big grade point difference. So saying that you're one place different in your graduating class may not mean anything. Now, it is important to understand the interval in some cases, okay? So the interval, so here we have nominal, ordinal, interval. So interval, probably the best example is temperature, okay? It's a beautiful sunny day today. Tomorrow it's not gonna be so warm. So on the news, the weatherman or weatherwoman may actually talk about the change in temperature from the day before. So the difference, that's an interval level. Again, temperature, the difference is meaningful, okay? It's something that's important. The highest level of data, and when I say highest level, it's the one that we can gather the most information from, are ratios, okay? So if, my understanding is that fish, you can find out kind of how much older they are based on their lengths, so that would be a ratio. When we think of the word ratio, that's division, that's a fraction, so that's ratio. So I'm gonna skip through these examples because you guys can read through these yourself. And I'm trying to keep these videos pretty short. All right, so again, a summary. So how to determine the level of measurement. The level of measurement listed from lowest to highest are nominal, ordinal, interval, and ratio. To determine the level of data, state the highest level that can be justified for the entire collection of data, okay? So again, read through those. So shifting gears just a little bit, there's two types of statistics. There's descriptive and inferential. So descriptive, we're describing it, okay? There are 2 people in each row. There are 15 people from each zip code, okay? That's just a description, right? Inferential says I take that information and I make some suggestions, or I draw some conclusions. The first chapters that we're gonna do, chapters 2, 3, and 4, think of this chapter 1 as just learning the language and setting the foundation. So chapters 2, 3, and 4 are descriptive, where you're just gonna learn how to describe the data. Inferential is the rest of the semester. So chapters 5 through 11, we actually are not gonna do chapter 11, so just because we're not gonna get there. All right, have a good day, guys.